Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video where we are going to be recreating my sketchbook painting of 3 tulips. This is the final painting. If you want to screenshot it, I'll leave it up for a few seconds so that you can use it as a reference photo while I mix up some of my colors here. So basically I'm just making a few different colors for the background first, and then we'll go into the tulips. But as you can see here, this is a glass palette that I'm mixing up, and I'm using some white, yellow, red, blue, and then I have a little bit of green in the corner there, and that'll be for the petals and stems. But yeah, so I'm just kind of like mixing up my colors here. I'm going to do like a yellow color for one flower, more of a pink, and then like an orangey kind of peachy tone for the third one. So yeah, this is kind of just like how I'm mixing them up. And then this is the white that I'm using. It's Artist Loft. It's just like a really affordable white paint, but I really do like it. So yeah, I just moved my camera angle so you guys can see a little bit better for how I'm mixing them, and I'm just referencing my sketchbook painting. And yeah, so we're just gonna mix all these up, and then we'll put down the background, and then I will mix up even more colors for the actual flowers. And then I also switched to a palette knife here. I think it's easier to use a palette knife to mix up your paints. That's just my preference. And then the other thing is, you'll notice that I don't even like clean off my palette knife, because I think it helps make all the colors more cohesive. And then you can also see I added an orange to my palette as well. Now here I am putting a layer of white paint down on my canvas first. And the brush that I'm using is a 3/4 inch Zen line from Royal and Langnickel. And so yeah, I'm just going up and down, back and forth with white paint and water to kind of put like a light base. And normally I wouldn't coat my entire canvas in white, but I really wanted a milky kind of background for my base, and so this white paint will help all of those colors blend, and it'll make them like really kind of like dreamy. So I'm starting with yellow, and I'm just dipping my brush into the palette and then putting it in like random patches all over the canvas, and I will do this with each color. So I'm just kind of like laying them down first, and now I'm going with pink, and I'll do that with each color, and then we'll like kind of blend them together. So this was actually kind of fun just to kind of do, and I have that orange that I kind of mixed up at the end there. I felt like I needed like a middle tone, so threw in an orange. And yeah, so the brush that I'm using is a flat brush, and I really like these like square kind of like flat brushes. I think that they just, I don't know, they're just my preference, but you can use whatever. You can use a round brush, a filbert brush, whatever works best for you here. This is just kind of like my choice, but it's kind of like a good like mid-size too. I feel like you could also use like a 1 or 2 inch brush here to kind of like maybe blend a little bit faster. And then I'm also painting my edges on this piece just so that it looks finished. I really prefer to always paint my edges unless I intend to do like a gold edge or black edge or something like that. But yeah, I always paint my edges. And then I'm just gonna go through and blend. Okay, so here I'm mixing up the colors for the flowers, and this is just kind of like the main mid-tone. As I go through the painting, I will either like deepen them and make them more saturated, or lighten them as I go for like highlights and shadows. But I'm basically just working off of the background tones and then making them just like a little bit darker and more saturated. And yeah, so I'm just mixing them up, so you can see how I mix them up here. It's a bit of like back and forth until you get the color that you like. And then of course a green color for the stems. So when I say like I'll add mid-tones and like light tones, I'll just add white to make it a bit lighter for like a highlight. And then for example, like the yellow, I'll add like a little bit more yellow and a little bit more of our purple color just to kind of deepen it for a shadow. And then like the same thing for red, I'll just, for our pink color, I'll put in a little bit more red and just like a touch of green to like deepen it for the shadow color. So when you see me do like highlights and shadows, that's how I did it. But I didn't mix up those colors just because it's just like a little bit here and there, and I just kind of like made them as I went. So here I'm putting in the flower petals, and this is like the first shadow. And I do my shadows and highlights as I go because it's a lot easier to blend in acrylics if you do it as you go while the paint is still wet. Acrylics dry super quickly, so yeah, it would be really difficult to blend once it's already dry. And then I also went ahead and drew in my tulip sketch just in pencil. And then I'll kind of like go through and erase it as I do my sections, or just kind of like paint over it. But I do like to kind of erase as I go as a rule, or at least kind of like lighten up the pencil marking, you know, so that it doesn't show through the paint. But yeah, that's my preference. So I'm going through and I'm putting in like the main pink color on the petal first, and then just kind of stroking on the deeper tone for the shadow. And then I just kind of like fill this in. And here I've switched to an angular brush. This is actually from that same line of brushes. I got them at Michael's. They're really nice. And I like angular brushes too. I feel like it helps me get right up to the edge with my paints. So yeah, I really like this, and it's like a good size for this piece too. But yeah, so I'm just blending in those shadows, and then here I'm going in with my highlight, which is just like a really light pink. And so I'm just going to blend all of that in. And then for these petals too, I'm putting kind of like a little bit of a line in the middle to show their shape and indentation. And then I also edged the petals with more of a lighter pink. So I'm just going to zoom out here and keep filling in these petals. And then those little gaps that I left up there, I'm going to put the, whatever they're called, like anthers, I think. I'm going to add those in. And so this color I just made, it's almost like a black, but you can just mix up your red, blue, and yellow and kind of create like a really deep kind of like magenta-y color. So now I'm going to move on to the flower on the right, which is our yellow tulip. So for this painting I did 3 tulips, and each one is in like a different stage of their bloom, which I thought was really pretty. So I have one that's like fully open, one that's like just starting to open, and one that's kind of still like closed up a little bit. So yeah, I don't know, I really like that. I was inspired by the phases and like how they bloom, so I wanted to create a painting of it. So that's how I came up with this idea. I also wanted something really soft and just kind of like simple and elegant for like a room, like something that you'd want to like hang up in your house and just like it just like makes you feel peaceful. So that's also kind of like why I decided on this color palette and this kind of like airy light feel. So I'm pretty much doing the same method on all 3 of these flowers, where I'm just like starting with the mid-tone and then blending in the highlights and the shadows as we go. And then this is a small angular brush too. It's a little bit smaller than the one I was using on the pink flower. And I'm just edging this highlight along. And then the flower on the right, at the end of the video, I actually go back and make it a little bit more saturated, which you'll see. So, but the same like blending process is the same, and I'll show you how I blended that one too at the end. So and then this shadow I went in, I actually did a little bit more of like a pinky shadow for this, a little bit more like of like kind of like pattern almost. And they all kind of have like this streaky like pattern, but I think I did it a little bit more on the yellow. And now I am going to put in some of the stems and a little bit of the leaves. So I'm going in with that green that we made and blocking in the mid-tone. I'm using the same brush that I was using earlier. Now between the yellow and the green, I did like clean off my brush here so that there's no like yellow coming through. And then to highlight and add shadow for green, I would just add some white to my green to make a little bit of a lighter green, maybe even a little yellow to like warm it up. And then for shadows, I would go in with more of the green straight out of the tube and a little bit of red to deepen it, but just like a little bit, because we don't want the colors to be too dark in this painting. They're all going to be relatively light. As you can see, when I was mixing up paint, it was like mostly white paint mixed in with just like a little bit of the other colors. So yeah, I just moved on to the petals, or the stems I mean, and leaves here, just to kind of like mix it up and go in there before I move on to our final flower. Sometimes I just like paint intuitively. That's like my process. I just kind of paint what I think needs to be done next, and not necessarily in the most like logical order, but yeah, that's just kind of how I do it. That's my process, but whatever works for you. And yeah, so I like, the other reason why I like the angular brush is that you can like do this edging really like slowly and pretty accurately, which I like, and I feel like it creates a really crisp line. That's a lot easier than a round brush or a filbert or even a flat brush in my opinion. So that's why I'm using that here. Okay, so then finally onto our third flower. We have this like gorgeous peachy tone, which I love. And I'm just kind of like blocking all of that in. Sorry for the glare. It's only for like a little bit, and then I moved my camera. I realized that there was a little bit of a glare, so it'll go away in just a minute. But yeah, I did fill this in with that beautiful peachy tone that we created. And then I switched back to that like bigger angular brush. And then for this shadow color, I just am adding more red and yellow to make kind of like just like a more saturated tone. And then if that's not dark enough, or if it's looking a little too bright, you could just add a little bit more like green to it. Okay, and finally the glare is gone. So yeah, I'm just adding more highlights here. And just kind of like outlining these petals so that you can see more of like the separation between them. Okay, so here I am erasing some of my petal lines. I'm gonna redraw this one a little bit and then go in with some paint. So I'm going in with that green color that we mixed up before. And then do the exact same technique that we did with the stems. And then for the petals, the ones in the back, I'm going to try to make slightly darker than the ones in the front. And then I'm kind of highlighting them in a way that makes it look like they have a little bit of shape. So putting like a vertical line of a light green and then just kind of like blending with vertical strokes, and then yeah, it kind of gives it a little bit more of a bent shape. And now I'm just kind of going back into this pink flower and adding in a little bit more depth to it by adding some reds in there. More like reddish orangey peach colors, but yeah. Okay, so I'm just kind of like adding some highlights and shadows to the inner part of this flower, and then we will kind of like wrap up this section of the video. I'm gonna add more yellow to the flower on the right, so let's cut to that. So I just want to add a little bit more. So I just added white, yellow, what was the name of this color? I forget, but I think it's raw sienna. No, this, okay, so it's white, yellow, this is called yellow oxide, this is purple, and then brown. So I'm mixing up the two yellows and the white here. And it's a little bit intense, so I'm gonna add some purple right in here. And so this is going to be kind of like the outer color. Here. And then with the color that's on my brush, plus a little bit of yellow, plus a little bit of white, we're just gonna create a really light, dreamy yellow. And then apply that in here and blend it. And now you just kind of want to work a little bit quickly so that the paint doesn't dry before you get a chance to blend it. So that's pretty good, and then right here I'm gonna go even lighter. So same thing with the color that I have in my brush. I'm just gonna take some white. I'm just gonna like roll off what I already have, and that creates a really, really light yellow. I didn't even add any more. But of course, if this is too light, go ahead and just add some of that pure yellow. We're just edging right along here. Okay. So I'm going to speed right through and then paint the rest of this, use like this petal here, using the same method, and then on the inside I'm going to do kind of the same thing where we have like 3 tones, and we do like the dark and blend it with a medium and then a lighter yellow. So yeah. I'm actually going to bring this light yellow all a little bit further into the petal here. There we go. I like that. Perfect, so I'm going to do this one. I'm going to take you in a little bit closer and then paint the rest of this flower. Okay, and that completes this video of our tulip painting. It's pretty big actually, but I really enjoyed it and I love how it came out. The yellow is still wet, so it's looking a little bright. It will dry a bit darker. But yeah, I'm so happy with this painting. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an update or a painting. Alright, I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Alright, I'm doing a test to see la 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 la, imagine me painting, imagining mixing colors.